kindergartners. It's Mrs. Thomas Moore here, and we are here for Math Meets Literacy. That's right. That's when we read a story or a book and we find all the math in it that we can. So today, we're going to do that. Before we get started, though, you know what we're going to do. Math and movement. And today we're going to skip count by fives. And when we skip count by fives, we're going to reach up for the nice blue sky. Okay? And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to stand with our feet shoulder width apart, and we're going to stretch with our right hand and say 5. Stretch with our left hand and say 10. And we're going to keep going with that pattern until we get all the way to 50. And when we finish, we're going to do what? We're going to celebrate, okay? So are you ready? Get your feet shoulder width apart. Are we ready? Here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. We made it. Let's celebrate. Awesome job, everybody. Awesome job. Now, the materials we're going to need for today are paper, pencil, and some crayons, maybe some markers or whatever you have at home that you can use. But for the story, what are we going to need? Listening ears, listening ears. As we read our story today, we're going to focus on the learning goal of I can read object and picture graphs and determine the categories and interpret the data as greatest, least, and same. So you know when we talk about object and picture graphs, what we're talking about a graph that shows us some data or information about something, either an object or a picture. And then we choose the category. And when we choose the category, that could be the shape or the size or the color or something to that effect. And then we interpret the data, and that means we can answer the question of which one has the greatest or which one has the least or which have the same amount. All right, and so all of that is tied into our K11 SOL that says the student will collect, organize, and represent data and read and interpret data in object graphs, picture graphs, and in tables. So we're going to be looking for those things while we're reading our story. We're going to be looking to collect data while we're reading our story today. So if you're ready, the title of our story is Roosters Off to See the World. This is by Eric Carle. And remember, if I say it's by Eric Carle, that means he's the author. That's right. He's the author. And so the title of the story again is Roosters Off to See the World. And we have the front cover of our book, the back cover of our book. What is this called? The spine. That's right, the spine of our book. And so when we open our book, the first page that we're looking at is Roosters Off to See the World. And that's the title page, super job. So are you sitting, ready to listen? Here we go. One fine morning, a rooster decided he wanted to travel. So right then and there, he set out to see the world. He hadn't traveled very far when he began to feel lonely. Do you know what it means to feel lonely? That means you kind of feel by yourself, like you don't have anyone around you and you don't know what to do. Sometimes we feel lonely when our friends aren't with us. Just then, he met 2 cats. How many? 2. Remember that. The rooster said to them, "Come along with me to see the world." The cats liked the idea of a trip very much. "We would love to," they purred and set off down the road with the rooster. So now we have 1 rooster and 2 cats. As they wandered on, the rooster, the cats, met 3 frogs. How many frogs? 3. "How would you like to come with us to see the world?" asked the rooster, eager for more company. Why not? Answered the frogs. We're not busy now. So the frogs jumped along behind the rooster and the cats. After a while, the rooster, the cats, and the frogs saw, how many turtles do you see there? Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 4 turtles crawling slowly down the road. Hey, said the rooster, how would you like to see the world? It might be fun, snapped one of the turtles, and they joined the others. So now we have 1 rooster, 2 cats, 3 frogs, and 4 turtles. As the rooster, the cats, the frogs, and the turtles walked along, they came to 5 fish swimming in the brook. Where are you going? Asked the fish. We're off to see the world, answered the rooster. May we come along? Pleaded the fish. Delighted to have you, the rooster replied. And so the fish came along to see the world. So now, how many fish were there? There were 5 fish. That's right. The sun went down. It began to get dark. The moon came up over the horizon. That means it came up so that you could kind of see it up in the sky. Where's our dinner? Asked the cats. Where are we supposed to sleep? Asked the frogs. We're cold, complained the turtles. Just then, some fireflies flew overhead. We're afraid, cried the fish. Now the rooster really had not made any plans for the trip around the world. He had not remembered to think about food and shelter. So he didn't know how to answer his friends. Uh-oh, the rooster wasn't very prepared for their trip, was he? After a few minutes of silence, that means everything was perfectly quiet, no sound. The fish suddenly decided that it might be best if they headed for home. They wished the others a happy trip, and they swam away. So the fish left because they weren't happy right now, were they? Then the turtles began to think about their warm house because they were cold, right? They turned and crawled back down the road without so much as a goodbye. So the turtles left. They didn't even say goodbye. The frogs weren't too happy with the trip anymore either. First one, then the other, and finally the last one jumped away. They were polite enough, though, to wish the rooster a good evening as they disappeared into the night. The cats then remembered an unfinished meal they had left behind. They kindly wished the rooster a happy journey, and they too headed for home. Now the rooster was all alone, and he hadn't seen anything of the world. He thought for a minute and then said to the moon, "To tell you the truth, I am not only hungry and cold, but I'm homesick as well." The moon did not answer. It disappeared too. What does it mean to be homesick? If you're homesick, that means you're missing your home or you're missing your family. So the rooster was a little homesick too. The rooster knew what he had to do. He turned around and went back home again. He enjoyed a good meal of grain and then sat on his very own perch. After a while, he went to sleep and had a wonderful, happy dream. What do you think his dream was about? It was all about a trip around the world. A trip around the world. So, our rooster didn't quite make his trip around the world, but he met some new friends along the way. So, today we're going to take a look at our story and the animals that were in our story, and we're going to create our own picture graph. So while we were reading our story today, we were collecting our data for us to be able to make our own picture graph. So the data that we were collecting was about our animals. So in our story, there were different types of animals. And so the types of animals are going to be what we call our categories. So we're going to separate and sort our animals by the categories. So now we have to interpret the data at the end after we finish our activity, which is meaning we're going to look at it and see which animal had the greatest, which animal had the least, and did any of them have the same? So let's look at what categories did we have. So that means who were the animals in our story? Who can tell me one of the animals? That's right, it was the rooster. What else did we have? Cats, frogs, fish, turtles, exactly. Oh, did somebody say fireflies? Yes, we did have fireflies in our story. We did have some fireflies in our story. But the 5 animals that we're going to talk about are the rooster, the 2 cats, the 3 frogs, the 4 turtles, and the 5 fish. And we're going to create our own picture graph from that, okay? So what you're going to need to do is that you're going to take your paper and you're going to create a graph for them. And you can create something that looks like this. And Ms. Thomas Moore has saved this document in her Flipgrid so that you can share your work with me. So if you want to use this blank one, you can do this. Or if you don't have access to print it off, you can use just regular notebook paper like this, and you can use those lines to help you figure out how to draw your own graph. And I'm going to demonstrate for you right here with my paper. So if I use those lines, I can draw my lines on those lines and make my own graph. So you could do something like this to make your own graph on notebook paper, okay? So now that we have our graph all ready to go, what do we have to put on our graph? We have to put on our graph, we have to label it so we know how we're calculating our categories. So what did we say the first animal was? Oh, we said it was a rooster. But you can pick any animals that you want to use. So let's say we put the rooster down. I'm just going to put an R right here for rooster. You see how I have that R on my paper? And then what was another animal we saw? Cats. So I'm going to put a C for my cats. What else could we put there? What other animal? We only need 4 of our 5 that we said. What else do you want? Turtles. What does turtle start with? Turtle. What does that start with? A T. Excellent. So now I have 3 categories and I need 1 more. 1 more. What do you want to choose as our last one? Okay, we can do fish, which is what letter? Fish. It has an F at the beginning. Good job. So now I have to show on my picture graph my number of animals for each category. So how many roosters were there? There was only 1 rooster. That's right. So I'm going to put 1 little circle here so I know that there was 1 rooster. Can you see that? And how many cats were there? That's right. It was 2 cats. So how many dots would I put in my under cats? I would put 2 there. So now my graph looks like this. And then it said turtles. How many turtles did we have? Who remembers? I'll show you the picture to help you remember. How many turtles did we have? That's right. It was 4 turtles. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 turtles. So how many dots would I put under the T for turtles? 4. And our last one was what? Our fish. How many fish were there? That's right. It was 5. So we're going to put a 5, or we're going to put 5 dots for our fish. So now there's my picture graph for my animals in the story, Rooster Off to See the World. So now I can answer the questions about my graph. If I were to say which animal had the least amount of animals traveling with them, who would it be? That's right, it would be R, which is what? Rooster, because he only had himself. It was just the one, just the one. Now, which one had the greatest number? The greatest number. Let's see, this one has 2, turtles have 4, fish have 5. That's right, it would be 5. It would be fish because it has the most. So it has the greatest number of animals traveling with them. So that's how we would answer the question. So you can do your graph like this. You can do your graph on the notebook paper like Ms. Thomas Moore did if you don't have it. And you can also do it using the paste that Ms. Thomas Moore has on our flip grid, which has the pictures of the animals already at the bottom, and then you can use those 4 animals to show your picture graph. That was great fun today, boys and girls. I would love to see your work out on Flipgrid. And the way that you do that is you can go to the URL that's on the screen and go to Flipgrid and put in that code. And when you do that, you can take a picture of your work or do a video of your work so that I can see your picture graphs of our animals in our story, Rooster Off to See the World. If you can also use the QR code that's there so that you can share your work with me. I can't wait to see your amazing graphs, and I can't wait to see you do some wonderful work. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for joining me for Math Meets Literacy. I'll see you next time. Be safe.